Hi everybody, welcome back to the Irish Medic YouTube channel. Welcome to another video. Today I wanted to talk to you about section 1 of the GAMSAT exam. The GAMSAT is quite a big exam. There's a lot to talk about across the different sections, so I decided to cover just section 1 today and give you guys a bit of an insight into how I studied for the exam. I've got a little decaf coffee today because it's kind of a cold evening and I wanted to keep myself nice and warm. So I'm going to talk to you guys about what I used to study for section 1 and give you an insight into my techniques in terms of answering these questions. So I'll start off by saying that the section 1 of the GAMSAT exam, it has a time allotted of 64 minutes, I believe, and 6 minutes on top of that of reading time. So 70 minutes in total. And there's 47 questions in this section. So that means that your written answering time would be 1.2 minutes per question. And then if you include the reading time, it's 1.5 minutes per question. But during the reading time, I don't believe you can write anything down or answer any questions in the MCQs. So bear that in mind. You can do a lot of reading in those 6 minutes, but you can't actually answer anything until the 6 minutes are up. So the first thing I'll say is that I didn't want to spend too much money for the GAMSAT prep. There are so many courses out there where you can spend thousands of euros on studying for the GAMSAT, and especially right up until the exam date, which I think could be useful if you know where your kind of weaknesses are. It might be worth spending some money and just upping your score that way by, you know, exposing yourself to as much as possible. You know, there are definitely pros, but for me, I decided to sit the GAMSAT once and give myself a good shot first and see, okay, what's my benchmark here? And if I did struggle in a specific section, maybe I would buy the course. But the first thing I wanted to say basically is that you don't need to spend a lot of money on preparation for the GAMSAT. GAMSAT itself, I think, is in the range of, I think, 300 plus euro. And then, you know, if you're going to buy ACER papers, that can add up quite significantly as well. So one thing I did buy for the GAMSAT for section 1 and for section 2 was the gold standard section 1 and section 2 textbook. This was really great for me because I wanted to have a good insight into the different types of questions that might appear in section 1. So in section 1, you're going to see things like kind of academic writing. So that's something that I was kind of used to because I studied science in my undergrad. I studied microbiology, so I was used to kind of those academic, you know, reading academic journals, articles. That wasn't really too unfamiliar to me. But what I wasn't so familiar with was kind of narrative passages, creative writing, kind of fiction pieces. So the textbook is very useful for that. Textbook also covers cartoons and poetry. So it's a good idea to kind of get familiar with each of those genres, let's say. So that's why I find the textbook quite useful. And again, coming from a science degree, I wasn't really used to reading too much else really. Reading poetry again was quite a foreign concept. But what I would say is that if you studied English in the Leaving Cert higher level, and you will be quite prepared for section 1. In the poetry section, you'll have to revisit imagery and metaphors and really putting yourself in the shoes of the poet. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. You might be a bit intimidated because maybe you haven't done it in a while, but I hadn't, and it actually came back to me pretty quickly. So I wouldn't underestimate your sort of foundation of knowledge. And I don't think GAMSAT poetry questions are supposed to be overly difficult or challenging. I think the overall idea for section 1 is that they're trying to get you to appreciate things from different perspectives and really put yourself in the shoes of others, and that's something that to really remember for section 1. The second thing I bought, and I would recommend this to everyone, I think it's a wonderful purchase, and it's really something that it had been recommended on a few blogs, but it's not really something that I've heard too much about, and that is to buy 12 weeks subscription of The Economist magazine. And for students, I think it's still €20. So you get 12 magazines, you get one magazine a week, and it is full of articles that are relatively short. So what I would do is in the morning of my study day, say it's a Saturday after work, weekend after work, I would read 3 articles at breakfast time, and I'd get my highlighter and I would just highlight new words or concepts that I hadn't really been exposed to before, just to kind of get myself into the frame of mind of, learning new things and challenging my own opinions and biases, I guess, and exposing myself to lots of different viewpoints. You don't need to rewrite these points somewhere in it, like in a notebook or something. If you have the time, great. It might help consolidate your ideas. But as long, if you're highlighting or underlining something, I think that kind of helps to really draw your mind to those ideas, if that makes any sense. And definitely for new vocabulary, I would type them up in my phone, anything that I found in the articles, or I'd write them in a notebook. And it would help to make your essay stand out, perhaps. And then in the GAMSAT section 1, sometimes they ask you, what's kind of something along the lines of describe what this word means, or give a synonym to this word. And The Economist is wonderful in terms of exposing you to current affairs and loads of different topics that maybe you could bring up in section 2. But I'm going to go into that in the section 2 video. Something else to keep in mind, guys, for section 1 is speed is number 1. I found with reading The Economist articles every day, I really built up my speed, and that is so important because, the difference of 5 or 6 questions in the exam overall could be quite important. So I would really recommend that. And then lastly, I would say practice as much as possible. I'm actually going to link you guys a website with cartoons that I found when I was studying in the description below. And that was good because I wasn't really used to satirical cartoons. And I think that's really good just to kind of get yourself some exposure. I did buy myself a book of poetry, like an anthology, but I didn't find that I read that much of it. The textbook had a few poems in there, which was great for just, again, getting used to the idea of similes and, again, imagery. But, with time you kind of build that up again. And again, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the poet or the author. And that's generally how you'll do well in those kind of questions. So just building up your speed reading is really important. And kind of seeing your progress is really helpful when you're studying, because it can be quite a long road, and if you're the only one in your life that who's studying for the exam, then it's a good idea to just be able to track your progress. And actually, one thing I would recommend as well is when you're doing practice questions, any questions you get wrong, first of all, it's great to get questions wrong, because the questions you get wrong, you tend not to forget. Those kind of questions that you just randomly get right because you kind of guessed it right, well, that's great for your score. You tend not to learn as much from that. So anything you get wrong, I would definitely recommend going and understanding why you went wrong and understanding why the other answers were incorrect as well. And then equally, any questions that you get right, understand exactly why you got those right. And sometimes in the textbooks, they might dip into a point in the kind of the answer sheet that maybe you hadn't really considered before. So that can be really useful as well. So I think that's pretty much it. I think practice makes perfect overall. Your speed reading is really important too. And yeah, I would say lastly, with section 1, it's quite an interesting section because in the exam itself, you'll get exposed to lots of different interesting pieces. And what I try to do to kind of maintain my motivation, my focus for studying for this section is to try and enjoy whatever material I was getting exposed to. So, you know, you might think, oh, I have to read 3 articles at breakfast time, you know, that's going to take me a while or whatever. I would try to go in with an open mind and think, what can I learn from these? You know, I read an article about dementia one time, and that was really poignant. And there were lots of topics that I hadn't really considered before that really, even today, resonate in my mind. So yeah, try to enjoy the process as much as possible, because it can be helpful. You know, if you do have to sit the exam again, you'll be reminded, okay, well, while it is, you know, a bit of a struggle to have to study things again and go over topics again and again, if you have fresh new information and fresh new articles to read, it should maintain your focus a little bit more. So yeah, guys, good luck with your studying. Feel free to DM me on my Instagram. It's The Irish Medic. I'll link it down in the description box. And yeah, if you have any questions at all about section 1, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. I'll be happy to answer anything that you have. And guys, I also want to say thank you so much for the support you've been giving me the last week with my first video. The audio wasn't the best, but I really want to do better with that. Yeah, I'm so excited to make some more content for you guys. Good luck with your studies, and I will see you in the next video.